Alright, it says we're online. Went ahead and, yep, we are live. So there we go. Anyway, welcome back to the Gospel of Comics, guys, with the Church of Failure and Ayrton. We are here today to talk about the World War Hulk saga, which is the continuance of Planet Hulk. Brief rundown. Planet Hulk was where the Illuminati sent the Hulk into space. The Hulk landed on a planet, basically conquered that planet, had a life, had a kid, had a wife, had friends, and then that planet was destroyed by the ship the Illuminati sent him in. So naturally, we can assume that the Hulk is just very pissed off right now.
That's an understatement.
So we pick up with the end of Planet Hulk with the Hulk on a spaceship, and he's literally standing outside pointing a sword at Earth. So we can only assume what that means.
Now, this has to be one of the coolest shots in at least this book. I would say.
Oh yeah. In that particular arc, the Hulk being suited up to go to war with planet Earth, it reminds me. And in fact, the book that we're about to watch really reminds me of the book we're about to talk about really reminds me of the so and so kills the Marvel universe because of just so many people that he just utterly decimates in this trial.
Oh yeah.
So you wanna start us off, or you want to? I'm gonna pull up the meditation scene that happens before he lands on Earth. If you want to start us off and just kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
All right.
So I guess to preface this scene while you get that pulled up, Hulk and the Warbound are, I forget who they're fighting in space. Just some random aliens.
Yeah, it seems really just like a random enemy to just show that they had some conflict and really showcase how pissed off the Hulk was.
Yeah. So he almost he starts attacking some of the Warbound and almost starts killing them, and it shows flashes of the Hulk seeing these other aliens as the Illuminati, kind of showing his mental state. So basically in this scene, what we're seeing here is he's walking the Hulk through a meditation so he can kind of pull himself in two, more or less, so he can more focus his rage, and it actually ends up giving him some more power and focus, but then also so he distinguish his enemies from everybody else. And I think it's a cool little nod to the duality of the Hulk character in general.
Right.
As you can see.
Well, just the fact that he's so enraged, but he's willing to listen to someone and be like, if I'm going to use the rage to my advantage, I have to learn to channel it.
Yeah.
Because this is still the Hulk mentality. Like, a lot of people would assume that with this level of intellect, we're dealing with a Professor Hulk, Bruce Banner mind in the Hulk's body, and that is not the case at all.
Right. And this is probably the most, intelligent, quote unquote, besides, Professor Hulk, that they really show him, I would say, for a lot of the comics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's more cultured and he's more refined and he's definitely more strategic. This is kind of heralded as one of the series that grew the Hulk into the kind of character that he is today.
Yeah.
I mean, before Amadeus Cho took it over. Not that I really had a problem with a lot of that run. Honestly, it was really refreshing to see the Hulk personified as being embraced as opposed to being a curse. It was definitely a different
Yeah,
direction to take it, but I think that there were only a few really, I don't know, good ways that you can really make that story work.
I didn't really read it because I thought it was kind of goofy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's almost like the theory behind One More Day. You can tell a
Yeah,
lot more stories with a single Peter Parker than you can a married Peter Parker, even though that's what the fans want.
right.
So, I think another thing that we need to touch on before we really dive deep into this is that during the time of Planet Hulk, during the Hulk's time on Sakaar, the Civil War, the first one with Iron Man and Captain America was going on, and that was, I mean, that was a pretty much a line wide event. Like if there was a Marvel comic coming out during Civil War, there was a book in that line that touched on what was happening with those characters in Civil War. Um, this is one of the first
Yeah.
humongous crossovers that really started to give people event fatigue. It's definitely by far not the first, but it's one of the first ones that every book in the line touched on. They created so many different titles that were Civil War specific.
Civil War was definitely one of the biggest ones, though, right?
Oh yeah, I believe in the end it was like some 151 comic books overall. I mean, Secret War 2015, which is one of my favorite crossover events they ever did, was 250 something. So with
Okay.
all the
Yeah.
tie-ins.
Well, I meant like at the time when the first Civil War came out.
Yeah, when the first Civil War came out, it was one of the biggest crossover events that had ever happened.
Okay.
Um, but we need to keep in mind that during all of this, um, the heroes are still divided. So at certain times, certain heroes will come up and they'll be working side by side with people that they were just fighting, and that just kind of goes to show that these heroes have to put aside any kind of differences they have if they're going to do anything about the threat that the Hulk poses right now.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of point that out. But anyway, moving on, getting into the start of the story. The basically the Hulk touches down on on the moon actually before he ever comes to Earth, right? He showed. Back me up here. He
Oh,
should.
so, sorry, I was about to hit the mute button to cough. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Um, look, man, cough all you want. We can't have any dead air. But
All right.
no, he touches down on.
Don't smoke.
Oh man, yeah, definitely. He touches down on the moon, and the first target he's going after is going to be Black Bolt.
Yeah. No. Should we circle back and explain why Black Bolt first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, part of this planning with the meditation, because I didn't actually take notes like Church did, so this is all just as it's coming to me in my memory.
The Shadow Warrior Hiram. I just called him Hiram.
Is that how you say the name?
I just called him Hiram. It just
Okay.
When it's an alien name, I don't feel bad mispronouncing it. I don't think that's racist.
But so they're discussing their plan of attack, and they basically come up with Black Bolt's the strongest, which is true, and that they should go after him first and just beat the snot out of him to send a message to the rest of Earth.
What they actually came to the idea was that Black Bolt being the most powerful simply because his voice, he could yell and break worlds, destroy planets. And
Yeah,
I mean, they've been calling the Hulk the World Breaker, and this is the story. The unofficial title was World Breaker Hulk. If you look up World Breaker Hulk, this is where you get the iteration of the Hulk. He's so powerful right now, he can destroy the entire planet if he wanted to. So the encounter starts off. Black Bolt steps up to the Hulk when the Hulk touches down, and the Hulk has a little soliloquy with him, and Black Bolt just whispers enough, and with that whisper, he just sends the Hulk flying through the debris on the moon. And then the Hulk returns from that, and he gives one of the most epic lines in the entire series right at the very beginning. He said, "I didn't come here to listen to you whisper. I want to hear you scream."
Yes, definitely one of the best openings to a story.
So he ends up actually being able to take out Black Bolt. We don't really see the entire fight take place on screen. We see a couple of blows landed, but nothing really to tell us that he's delivered a beating worthy of taking down Black Bolt. But then, come at the end of that particular issue, which was the prologue, we get the scene of him relaying a message across the entire I don't know, the entire eastern seaboard, I would assume. And this message, he just simply states, "Evacuate Manhattan, or I'll do this to you and everybody that stands in my way. You have 24 hours, and you need to bring me Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, Iron Man, Tony Stark, and God, who was it? Doctor Strange."
No, do you have the screenshot of that scene?
No, where he's demanding you bring them. That was directly before this one. I wanted to take a second to just show that he defeated Black Bolt and is holding up his broken body here. So he's still alive though. Black Bolt is still alive. He's just being held captive. We don't know what the overall goal is yet, but we do know that the Hulk did not kill Black Bolt in their encounter. So that's where we are at this point.
Man, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but where I'm at in the stream is not showing what you say you have pulled up.
We it's it's slow. I'm not sure what's going on, but when I refresh it here, let me oh, we got a couple of people in the chat. Oh well, at one point we did. I just had to refresh it.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. It always tells me my signal is just so low, even though I have really good stream health. And every time I check my signal, it pops back to green for a minute. So I don't know what's going on. But anyway, moving on. The next person he's going to encounter is Iron Man. Now, the timeline for this, for me at least, was a little bit shaky. So when you take that into consideration, you don't really know what the order of, except for certain people that he encounters is. Right? I mean, he goes through so many.
Yeah,
groups.
It gets a little confusing jumping back and forth sometimes, but
so we're gonna try and piece this together as best we can, but for a lot of it, we're just going to kind of go through the different groups and whatnot as he encountered them, and just kind of go over just how easily he walked all over them. It's a lot of rinse and repeat in this story. The first, I'd say, 2/3 of it, maybe even 3/4, was literally just the Hulk and the Warbound beating up everyone they encountered.
Which, that's kind of what you want out of a Hulk story.
I mean, out of this one, yeah, it definitely there's definitely a feeling of, like I said, the Hulk kills the Marvel universe in this. So I guess the next person he's going to be encountering is going to be Iron Man. So let's just see here. Oh no, that's not the one we want just yet. There we
go. One thing that I thought was kind of cool too is each new encounter, they kind of escalate like how much they actually show you of the fights too.
Right, and I didn't really know. I didn't notice that until the end, but like you go back and you kind of look at how many pages are dedicated to the fights with each encounter, and you really have
or at least it seemed to escalate how much they showed as it went on.
Right. No, I'm agreeing with you on that. Like I say, it seems like the further you get into the story, the more actual action pages you get, and I did appreciate that because the fight at the end was, superb. But anyway, no, we get.
Are you there?
Yeah. Can you not hear me?
Okay, there you are. Yeah, Discord just cut out for a second.
Yeah, we're gonna blame any technical issues we have going forward on Discord, and that's what we're gonna have to do from here on out. I was not able to pick up a cord today, an Ethernet cord. I promise I will have one by next week. If I don't, I will not have one by next week, but I promise I will. I'm not really trying to punish myself. But no, I did not make it out to pick up a cord because I am lazy and it is the weekend. So, but anyway, we get to the point where Tony Stark gets involved. Now, everybody's starting to find out why everyone's upset with, or the Hulk's upset with everyone, because in his announcement, he brought out the fact that the four people, Black Bolt, Reed Richards, Tony Stark, and Doctor Strange, were responsible for sending him into space and destroying the home that he made for himself there when he wasn't even bothering anyone. Now, we've seen various denials from several people at this point that that's even possible. Like, everyone on every side of the issue just doesn't believe that there would have been a bomb from these people on that ship.
Right. And that's basically the only real catalyst. Even if that hadn't happened, he wouldn't have cared that they sent him away.
Right. So, he had actually finally made peace and made something for himself. And that's something that the Hulk's always maintained that he wanted to do. He wanted to be left alone. And when he finally got to that point, it fell apart like it always does, which again just kind of showcases how much the Hulk is a tragic character. But again, like I said, this whole story arc is a lot of rinse and repeat. So I'm gonna give you three guesses as to what happens to Iron Man when he finally encounters the Hulk.
I mean, it's not fair because I did read it, but I have a sneaking suspicion that he got the crap kicked out of him.
I mean, let's just see what's behind door number 2 on that one. Oh wow, you were absolutely correct. The Hulk pretty much uses Tony Stark as a ragdoll. Now, one thing you start to see is that there are actual people that are staying in New York and support what the Hulk did. And this is part of the reason that it was important to mention Civil War.
Right. Right. Because he announces any unregistered hero gets a pass during this crisis.
Right.
Because that's just how much of a threat the Hulk is.
Right. This situation is an Earth level of event, and you've got the Hulk and you've got Iron Man in this fight in the middle of Manhattan, but it's mostly evacuated. But then you've got people like Bill Foster's nephew come up and chastise Tony Stark and Reed Richards for basically being responsible for the death of Goliath. You've got people who were hurt by the Hulk who are out trying to pull together, and we'll get to that with the Gamma Corps in a minute. We can do that before we do X Men, since it was such kind of it was really a very inclusive run, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that next. I think the Gamma Corps. You wanna give a brief introduction as to what that is while I get it pulled up here.
Yeah. So, it was five.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5.
Yeah. All of who got affected by the Hulk in some way in their life, and the guy's name. I'm so bad at this.
Yeah, don't worry about the names. I can pull that up off screen here. We can go through it that way.
Yeah, or the general that came to all of them. That's who
General
I'm trying to
Ross.
remember.
Yeah, Thunderbolt Ross. You have to know that one if you know the Hulk.
It was Ross. Was it Ross?
I believe so.
I thought it was. Yeah. I thought it was the Riker guy.
Oh, he was. Yeah, I think he was in charge of it, but I believe that Ross was the one that brought them together. I could be wrong on that.
Oh,
because I know that.
Either way.
Yeah. See, you remembered. You remembered. Yeah, the team was assembled by General Riker. You're right there. I forgot that.
Okay.
Ross was the one that eventually becomes the Red Hulk after this.
Yeah, so he brings all of these people together and basically affects them with gamma radiation as a way to get revenge on the Hulk. So in this scene here, you see them fighting, an LMD version of the Hulk in a training simulation.
Right. No, now let's just look here. The Gamma Corps consist of 5 members. You've got Gray, who is a lieutenant and a younger brother of basically an old friend of the Hulk who died as a result of being friends with the Hulk. Or tried to destroy him. I can't remember. This was really not a very interesting story arc for me, is what I'm getting at. This was very forgettable. It seemed shoehorned in to try and test out another group that was basically a bunch of different Hulks, and it didn't work for me. The Agents of Smash cartoon was better.
The dude with the dude with like the wings and claws, whatever his name is.
That would be
he
Griffin.
Was kind of Griffin.
Yeah.
He was kind of entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't garbage. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just kind of like batshit crazy.
Now, oh, go ahead. You still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I think you cut out for a sec.
Fucking garbage Discord. I'm gonna send you my Skype address. So next time we'll try Skype and see if that's any better.
All right.
If you don't already
Man,
have
Discord.
yeah, if you don't already have Skype,
I do.
Oh, you do? Well, shit, I'll send it to you now, and
Yeah.
we'll do this live on air, baby.
All right, send it over.
All right, I'll just send you a DM on Discord so that we can leave Discord.
Let me just.
All right, that's my my Discord email. It's not very secret, but and I'll go ahead and pull up the terrible Skype, and we'll
All
just
right.
down Discord, and that might help a little. It might hurt a little. Who knows? Who knows? All right. If you want to send me whatever your name or your email is back, I can actually initiate the call.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah, we're doing it live, folks. I'm sorry, but we're trying to get we're trying to get some better audio going in here. This is for you. This is for the people.
I think I got you added.
All right. Send me a message over Skype or whatever. Make sure it's on there. Like, just send me a chat message and I'll initiate the call. All right, cool. There we go.
There you go.
There we go. And I'm gonna.
Okay.
All right. How's that? Better? Worse?
Oh, so much better.
So much better. We are on Skype, ladies and gentlemen. We finally have it. Finally have fluid audio. It looks like the stream even appreciates us being on Skype more. I guess we'll have to figure out how to do calls. We'll play around with Hangouts this week. No, the stream hates me. Never mind.
The stream hates you.
The stream hates me. But anyway, no, we were talking about the Gamma Corps. It was another team. I don't think it really ever went anywhere. I know they brought it back under Norman Osborn, but I don't really pay attention to any of that because it was all garbage.
Yeah, I hadn't really heard of them until I was reading through this. So, but yeah, they were mildly entertaining.
Now this puts us at a kind of a crossroads. We've got the Daily Bugle that comes out here, and we see the Hulk fighting Black Bolt and Iron Man. Now, obviously, that never happens. That was just a piece of promotional art, which kind of breaks my what's the word I'm looking for? My suspension of disbelief a little. But we're at a bit of a crossroads here, so we can go a couple of places from here. The next people that he encounters are going to be the X-Men, but he also is going to encounter the Avengers. He's going to encounter, God, so many people. Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my favorites, was Ghost Rider. He's going to encounter She-Hulk.
Oh yeah. Ghost Rider was cool. I mean, just about everybody.
So
for the most part.
We can talk about something that does happen there. First off, the introduction of a character that's going to be our Chekhov's gun. We have the Sentry.
Yeah.
So the Sentry is a major player. The last time he was a really big deal was because he was the Void. He is a schizophrenic, agoraphobic, very, very powerful human being. He is the most powerful human being on planet Earth. Not Miss Marvel, by the way.
Yeah, see now, Sentry, I don't actually know a ton about his backstory.
I mean, I can give you the Nickel tour real quick. Basically, for this story, he's just he's the Chekhov's gun. Like I said, his name's Robert Reynolds, and he's the only person on Earth who actually has a chance at stopping the Hulk at this power level.
All right.
He was created in the 90s, and he's had some very interesting character arcs. But like I said, he's basically a nutcase with a very excruciatingly high power level and a dark side.
Well, I think from there we should segue over to maybe the Fantastic Four then,
Okay.
because we got that little tie-in.
Right. Yeah. Let's. I don't know that I have a whole lot of caps from the Fantastic Four encounters, just because I pulled other
Oh,
stuff
okay.
from those books. But we can definitely talk about it. I'll just pull back up the Daily Bugle shot, and we can kind of get into that. Really, what happened is that they approached him and attacked him, Ben Grimm and the Human Torch, basically like in Planet Hulk before they were sent off. And there was no reasoning with him. I mean, Johnny goes supernova and it doesn't even stop him. I mean, do you think he would have learned in Planet Hulk when he did it the first time?
Well, he went supernova and had Storm cast a bolt of lightning through it too.
Yeah.
So to be fair, he did try something a little new.
Yeah, I suppose, but and then you got your appearance from Black Panther, who was probably the only character in the book who really had no tie to this whole event. Like, the Fantastic Four were innocent except for Reed, but they were still associates.
Yeah. And just quick side note, this is also when Storm and Black Panther were married for some reason, just because they're both superheroes in black, I think. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, well, technically they're both they're both pretty high standing members of their particular civilizations as well.
True.
So I mean, Storm is revered as a goddess in Africa. So I mean,
yeah, it was still a little weird.
Yeah, it did. But I mean, whenever superheroes get married, I think it's kind of weird to
me. Yeah, that's fair.
But anyway, the end all plan is Reed Richards has figured out a way to synthesize one of the Sentry's powers, which is to emit some kind of glow that calms the Hulk down. And that, I mean, it's a bad plan because the Hulk sees right through it and snatches him right out of the air. I mean, it's almost embarrassing. I really should have pulled a shot from that, but it's just almost embarrassing. But at that point, that's the third captive that he has, and we should talk about one of the best encounters, which I think is the X-Men, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
So the first part of that actual encounter is the Hulk shows up outside of Xavier's mansion, and he wants to speak to Xavier because Xavier is a member of the Illuminati. He just wasn't present during the vote to send Hulk into space. So the Hulk shows up, and the name of the book story is Hard Questions. So he wants to know the answer to the same question that Tony Stark asked at an earlier point: that if he had been present, would he have voted to send the Hulk into space?
Right.
Now, we get, kind of an answer from that when Xavier explains that, I wasn't there and I would have never voted to just outright exile you, but I would have voted to send you away while we looked for a cure. And to the Hulk, that's just as bad as saying, yes, I would have voted yes.
Yeah.
So, and, I mean, understandably so. Let's just take a minute. We got a couple of people in chat. How's the audio? Is the audio any better with Skype over Discord? Anybody that's listening?
Yeah, there's a tiny bit of like a like background noise on your end, but it's nothing too bad.
I have 3 children, and it is before bedtime, sir. You will have to forgive me.
That's what I assumed it was. So.
Oh man, it looks like the stream effed on my end. I'm gonna. Oh, okay. Gulf City
Really?
says it was just an error. YouTube is garbage as well, but we're doing what we're doing.
It's
Gulf City says the audio sounds good, so
cool.
all right. So where were we? The X-Men.
Yes.
So Xavier explains, hey, yeah, I would have voted to send you in. I'm not, I'm not ashamed of saying that. But after he explains that, then all of the X-Men, not just the ones currently pictured, but all of the X-Men show up to help. This is just the classic team. You got Cyclops, you got Kitty Pryde, Colossus, Wolverine, Emma Frost, Beast. But every junior X-Man, and there are only a handful of mutants left after M-Day at this point. Charles Xavier can walk again, but every mutant in Marvel Comics that is available shows up to try and stop the Hulk. And I'm gonna ask you again. What do you think the Hulk does to him? What are we noticing a pattern yet?
Yeah, come on, Gulf City. What's the answer?
Yeah. I think he's playing Gran Turismo. I don't want to bother him too much, but I bet Gulf City does know the answer. I mean, let's just take a look at this. We've got Colossus with some broken arms. I wonder how that happened. I think the Hulk might have broken him. Wolverine. Oh man, he takes one of the most brutal beatings of the whole book.
Oh yeah. Do you have that image?
No, this is the one that I pulled for that. I honestly, that one hurts my soul a little bit to look at.
Oh yeah, it was pretty brutal.
But basically, what's happened is the Hulk has grabbed Wolverine because Wolverine decided to try and claw his eyes out, and he said, I know I can't kill you, but I wonder how long it would take your healing factor to catch up if I just beat you so severely that your brain bounced off that adamantium skull of yours a couple times. And then proceeds to do it. So, I mean, you got that going for you. Now, in the end of that...
It should be noted...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
I was just gonna say, it should be noted that Wolverine and the Hulk have basically been rivals since Wolverine's been around.
Yeah, his inception, his first appearance was in the Incredible Hulk number 181. It's one of the most famous comics out there, I believe.
Yeah.
Back when he had the whiskers on his mask.
Which is kind of goofy looking.
But no, they've been longtime rivals, and I think at one point Wolverine stands back and is just like, this isn't nice Hulk, this isn't baby Hulk or barroom brawler Hulk. This is a different Hulk.
Yeah.
And the conclusion of this, like he literally defeats all the X-Men. At one point, Darwin, the X-Man with powers, with the ability to adapt to any situation, he goes up against the Hulk, and he's literally one of the best candidates to try and fight the Hulk. And his powers basically say, oh, well, you can't adapt to this, so we're just going to teleport you away. because that's how you survive this.
That was a good part.
Yeah. I also let's just take a moment and reflect on just how many urine references there were in these books.
How many urine references?
Yes, in the Planet Hulk storyline, I noticed two in the Fantastic Four 3 books alone. I had to stop counting after a little while. Like people just keep referencing like peeing their pants or stuff like that. It's very strange. But it's just something I noticed. At least 4 or 5 encounters of like it's very weird comedy, I guess, in the early 2000s. But
Yeah, that was
now
a weird time.
now the end of the whole basically making the X-Men wish they were all dead, but not killing anyone. That's something to keep in mind. At this point, the Hulk hasn't killed anyone. Now, his
Right.
Warbound may not be so innocent, but he has not killed anyone, and no one's been killed on his order. So the ending of this is just all the worse for it because the Hulk approaches Xavier and basically says something along the lines of, everything you've been through, considering all of this might be your own fault, you living in your own hell already, there's nothing more I can do to you. I know what you're going through. And that's potentially one of the saddest things of this whole thing because you see these two men and they're carrying the burden of so much on their shoulders.
Yeah. I always thought that was interesting, like just overall how Xavier just approaches the Hulk and how he just talks to him so calmly.
Well, I mean,
Like,
once he gets his hands on you, there's nothing you can do, and there's nothing you can do to stop him from getting his hands on you. So why try?
right.
Um, we got a question in the chat. I figure you can field it first, and I'll weigh in if I feel the need to. But could Wolverine's claws penetrate the Hulk's skull?
The Hulk's skull.
Yeah.
I'm not. Best I got is the well, it was the movie that the comic that they based the Logan movie off of.
Old man. Yeah.
Yes, Old Man Logan. Thank you. The Hulk actually eats Wolverine, swallows him whole, and then Wolverine just kills him by gutting him from the inside out. So,
Yeah.
so in theory, it's possible, but I can't think of an instance where they've done it.
I think his healing factor might come into play. It really just depends. I think you'd have to. Man, YouTube just keeps telling me the stream keeps dying, and
Huh.
I don't understand. Why are you doing this to me, YouTube? The stream has continued, and we picked up 10 seconds. What the fuck, YouTube? Anyway, no, they could penetrate the Hulk skull as long as they were adamantium claws. Now, the question is, at that point, yeah, I know YouTube just giving me all kind of settings. It looks like a cardiac arrest going on over here on my little thing. I'm almost tempted to just close it down and do it blind, but I want to watch the chat. I could pop the chat out, but no. I feel like the healing factor would come into play, and that you'd have to pretty much get the right part of the Hulk's brain. And I'm not sure there is one, but
Yeah.
in theory, I think it can happen. I do believe there is a comic called "What If the Hulk Killed" or Wolverine Killed the Hulk, and I'm pretty sure that that's a similar way that it happened. Is he either cut his head off or stabbed him in the head with his claws?
Yeah.
So the theory is that decapitating the Hulk would stop him, but I'm not sure that that's actually accurate. For all I know, there's been a story where that's happened, and he just Deadpooled a new head. For all I know, I'm not as familiar with his character as I should be, but I just don't recall an instance of him ever dying. I mean, he can breathe in outer space. He's damn near invulnerable.
Yeah, well, technically in Old Man Logan, he died, right?
Well, yeah,
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, but that was a very old Hulk, and his power was nowhere near World Breaker level.
True.
So.
Yeah, so it also depends on what iteration of the Hulk we're talking about.
Right. I mean, we saw the World Breaker Hulk get shot up with adamantium bullets for a good minute and a half and just walk it off. So.
Yeah.
Just because they can penetrate him doesn't mean they can stop him, depending on how mad he is.
Yeah, so I guess in this instance with the Hulk we're seeing right now, I would say probably not. They might penetrate his skull, but they're not. But his claws wouldn't do anything.
Right. Now, during this whole fiasco with the X-Men, we get a visit from one of my personal favorite characters. That'll be the Juggernaut, Cain Marko. Cain Marko, at this point in the storyline, has actually been a good guy, and he is currently in league with Captain Britain, I believe. But he goes to his little room and he pulls open a drawer and he pulls out the gem of Sidorak, and he proceeds to essentially make a deal with the devil. Sidorak, for those that don't know, is a fourth dimensional demon that is the reason that the Juggernaut has his powers. Sidorak makes the Juggernaut his agent of chaos and destruction.
And to note, Doctor Strange uses the crimson bands of Sidorak as well.
Right, which are not just a fashion accessory on the Juggernaut's costume. Sorry, that was corny. Anyway, no, you see the Crimson Bands in Infinity War in the movies and several times over in the comic books. It's a common spell.
Yeah.
But Sidorak obviously grants the Juggernaut his wish and sends him to where the Hulk is. And they go blow for blow. And it's really a classic matchup because this has happened several times in the past as well. It'll happen again during Fear itself when the Juggernaut gets a hammer and becomes an agent of the serpent. I can't remember his name right off the hand. It's Thor or Odin's brother in the comics.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that name.
But but no, Colossus actually becomes the Juggernaut for a short while after that, which is a really cool storyline. But yeah, he gets his full power back, and they go blow for a minute, and then the Hulk does something a little out of character, and he actually outsmarts the Juggernaut. He lets the Juggernaut get a running start on him, and he basically Aikidos him, sending him into the ocean. By the time the Juggernaut can stop, the Hulk will be long gone.
Which, is showing that that meditation back to the very first is actually working.
Right.
The Hulk's just not full on just brawling. He's actually being deliberate in what he's doing in the fight, which is something kind of different for him.
Right. Now, we talked about it earlier, so let's go ahead and get it out of the way as well. Ghost Rider. Johnny Blaze.
Yeah, the real Ghost Rider.
Well, the Spirit of Vengeance. Yeah. Well, Robbie Reyes is a decent Ghost Rider. He grew on me during the Secret Wars 2015.
Oh, okay. I've only read a few things in it with him, and I don't know. To me, Ghost Rider needs a motorcycle, not a car, because then you're Ghost Driver, which doesn't sound as cool. But
I mean, it worked with a horse. But I guess you ride a horse as well.
yeah,
I don't know. I like that they didn't just put him on another motorcycle
that's true.
or a 10-speed. That'd be even worse.
Okay, so now I just am picturing Deadpool possessed by the spirit of vengeance on a tricycle.
I was about to say it'd have to be a tricycle, but he'd have the tricycle from the motorcycle show where they put an 18-wheeler engine in it. Now, this is a really interesting little 2-issue story. It introduces an introduction of a conflict with a villain that Ghost Rider's been after in his own series, and that leads him to New York, right?
Right. Real quick, Gulf City asked, will you be discussing DC Comics on this channel? Batman is the best superhero of all time, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and God, we'll have to get American Phoenix back on so that he can argue with you on that, because he apparently has a hate boner for Batman. But me personally, yes. If you want us to cover anything in particular, let me know and I'll put it on the list. I want to have the Killing Joke on to talk about his namesake comic at one point as well. He already agreed to it. We'll just have to schedule it. So that's something we could do.
Nice.
So I could actually reach out to him this week and find out if he'll be open in a week or so. Maybe after we do Lock and Key, we can do the Killing Joke.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, Gulf City, I got no problem. Green Lantern's my favorite DC character, so I definitely have a love for characters within both the big two and a bunch of independent stuff. Somebody just asked like a week ago for us to cover World War Hulk, and that was the first request. So I was like, well, fuck it, we got to take it. So anyway, back to Ghost Rider. Johnny Blaze is, drawn to New York, chasing another bad guy and villain, whatever. If you and you see here, he gets to New York and he realizes that people are evacuating, and then he encounters the Hulk. And nice, Green Arrow, Batman followed closely by Green Arrow, and he corrects himself, Arrow. Yeah. But Blaze tries to stop him because he's a good guy, even though the spirit of vengeance is telling him, "No, stop. This isn't your fight. This isn't up to you." And he keeps ignoring it because Johnny Blaze is a good guy. And we see Doctor Strange in the background of this comic, in an off-panel shot where he's talking about the spirit of vengeance. The worst thing that could happen is for Johnny Blaze to lose control and unleash the full spirit of vengeance, even though the spirit of vengeance would have the power to stop the Hulk. And that doesn't really make sense to us. And then near the end of the second issue, it finally clicks that the spirit of vengeance only judges those who are guilty. And unfortunately, in this situation, for everybody else, that was them. The Hulk is justified in his vengeance. And then you get the shot of the full-on Ghost Rider, like just riding away after he acknowledges the Hulk. And I mean, they've gone round and round. The Hulk tricked the Ghost Rider at one point and strapped his chain to a subway car. That was impressive. It shows that the Hulk was thinking strategically. We got a little bit of the Planet Hulk, but it was usually attributed to his Warbound.
Yeah.
But here we're seeing the Hulk in one-on-one encounters, and he's actually using his intelligence for his, for the better. Uh, let's see here. They got a couple of things, a couple more things to touch on before we get to Doctor Strange, right?
I believe.
We got Meek and Rick Jones. We've got the Avengers.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, they encounter the Avengers, guys. That happens.
There's just so many side stories. It's hard keeping them straight.
Right, and that's what I was getting at. Like, it's really hard to keep a chronological timeline, but again, here we have a shot of the Warbound and the Avengers going at it, and like I said, you've got Spider-Man and Spider-Woman in this shot. You've got Leonard Samson, Doc Samson, another Gamma Mutate, Luke Cage. What's up?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and this iteration of the Avengers would is that part of the? Because if Spider-Man's there, is that part of the Secret Avengers? Because he's in his black costume in that shot, right?
Yeah,
the stream's being slow for me, so I can't actually see where we're at the moment.
It's Black Suit Spider-Man and Luke Cage. They're the Secret Avengers. Yeah. Because Luke Cage was basically the leader of that group because he never registered. He didn't agree with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
come on, YouTube. Sorry.
We're on a little bit of a delay anyway, but it's because I'm not watching it. It's misbehaving. It's up for me, so you might have to refresh the stream.
Yeah.
But no, the Hulk and the Warbound basically do the same thing they do to everybody else and make short work of these guys. I do want to take a minute to point out that Ms. Marvel is a member of these Avengers. It's Carol Danvers with her long hair and her non-feminist outfit.
Yes.
And
Miss Marvel, not Captain Marvel.
That's correct, because the Sentry is the strongest person in this universe right now. We can't forget about the Sentry. They keep bringing him up, so I think between every scene I should just flip the Sentry in there, because that's how much they talk about it. The president calls him and asks him to help. Like, literally...
Which is amusing.
Yeah, like, literally every character in the Marvel Universe, even humans that you don't ever see, ask the Sentry, come help! And he's just like, nah, I don't want to leave my house. Seems like work. But,
which, I mean, is such an entertaining character arc.
Right. Well,
to me. Just like, I don't feel like it.
Right, he's just like, can you fake it? You think it'll work if you fake it? A couple of other notable mentions we've got is Meek and Rick Jones. And,
yes.
We talked briefly about the parallel between their characters last night, but this story really touches on that a lot more because there's several books that have parallel arcs between these two. And they even have a full sequence together with one another where they explain why they're trying to help the Hulk in their own ways.
Right. And I found that kind of like parallel thread that runs through this whole story pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And it just shows what happens when you befriend a certain version of the Hulk. I mean, Rick Jones even talks about how many times he's been assaulted by the Hulk. I mean, the Hulk literally tried to kill him on a couple of occasions.
Right. And I don't. Do you have the shot where it's when he's first getting to Manhattan, and it's like a cut back and forth between him and Meek talking about how they're the Hulk's only friend and how they're going to help him?
I've got the first shot up where it's just like Meek and Rick Jones saying, I'm Meek, the Unhive, the Hulk's first friend from Planet Sakaar."
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, that art. Um, that's what I was talking about. They really. Let me see if I can do this. You got your Skype up?
I can pull it up.
Pull up your Skype. Let's try this instead.
Okay.
Hey, there you go. Can you see my screen?
No.
Oh yeah, let me. There we go. Should be able to see it now.
Ah, yeah. Oh man, that's so much better.
All right. Anyway, no, you really have the parallels brought between the two of these people because they were some of the biggest advocates for the Hulk, regardless of what all they've been through. I mean, at this point, you can see Meek's already lost one of his arms.
Yeah.
You know, Rick Jones had the crap beat out of him by the Hulk multiple times. You've got so many just parallels that they go through, like the times that they've been with the Hulk in battle, the times that they were the voice of reason for the Hulk, the time that they were against the Hulk. And the difference is that Rick Jones knows both sides of the Hulk, and he's been there since day one. He was the character that the Hulk saved from becoming him, essentially, or dying.
Well, as we find out, I think it's after this we find out the Hulk was always a part of Banner, right? Is it after this storyline?
Um, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if that's something. I think it might have been before that because there was an arc where Doc Samson separated the Hulk from Banner.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what that's all about. But yeah, this is another arc.
Okay.
Like they're going through and talking about their adventures with the Hulk, and they both say that for the first time I was strong, standing with the Hulk, Meek, and for the first time Rick Jones was free from an abusive childhood and being told what to do by people who didn't give two shits about it. So the Hulk really did a lot for these people, even though everyone called him a monster. They always stuck by him, and it just again shows the parallel. And it just ends up, and they're both talking about how we're going to do help the Hulk in our own way, and we're not going to stand in one another's way, but we disagree on what the other's doing to help the Hulk, so to speak.
Right.
Because Meek is obviously behind his campaign to dominate, and Rick Jones wants him to calm the fuck down. So, let's see, what else have we got here? I've got a funny one that we talked about earlier. Pull that up in a second, and then we'll get on to Doctor Strange and kind of wrap this up. The reason that I'm not spending the whole, and we can talk about anything you want to bring up or extrapolate on further, but the reason I'm not spending as much time just going over every little tiny detail of this story is because it really is so much rinse and repeat. Like there are a couple of there are a couple of tie-in books. Like I've got one that I'm about to pull up, and I'm just going to kind of let you go off for a few minutes because you've been too quiet. But I'll get it pulled up there, but you'll see what I'm talking about. There was a point. The first part of this story arc actually begins with the She-Hulk series. It doesn't have a whole lot to do with what's about to happen, but sets up a lot of the stage and a lot of the players. And she's a really dynamic character in the story because she's one of the few people that understand how the Hulk thinks and why he's as mad as he is about what's happened and is on his side.
Well, it should be noted that her her storyline, she didn't know that he had been sent into space. She just thought he was missing and was working for Shield, basically as part, or she was part of their Hulkbusters unit, and she was sent into anytime they got gamma readings anywhere, she was sent in to deal with it.
Right.
So she fights the Abomination at one point. The Wendigo with Wolverine and a couple others, but then she finds out that they had sent Hulk away and gets into a big fight with Iron Man, and she gets in, and she also learns that all of these villains from these gamma villains from the Hulk that they've been fighting and rounding up, they're using as experiments to figure out a way to turn off basically the gamma-ing out, whatever the term for that would be. And so she gets into a fight with Iron Man over it, and because he's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point, and he injects her with these nanobots, and actually she gets her powers taken away for a while as well. But at this point, she has gotten them back.
Right. One of the things,
and that basically. Go ahead.
Oh no! One of the things that she did that really made me happy was that she was approached by Doc Samson at a certain point, and she was Jen Walters, and he was basically just trying to finesse her into going back and seeing things his way, and she was like, "He's my cousin," and they shot him into space without even giving him a trial. Like, how am I supposed to be okay with this? And he, you know, he's like, well, whatever. Gives her another bullshit line, and she's like, oh, by the way, those nano machines just wore off, so she just knocks him into a county over.
Yes, that was a good part. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed her whole little arc there at the beginning.
No, I like I said, I don't like to read a whole lot of the auxiliary material to these things because you get stuff like the Heroes for Hire arc, and that was really
that was kind of
yeah. I mean, it's not even.
I skimmed through that part.
Yeah, it's not even really worth reading. And all the guidebooks and stuff, you don't ever really want to read those if you want to take the story in because it's just too much extrapolatory knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, part of there were some parts of the Heroes for Hire thing that was kind of entertaining, but the way they opened it in this story, I was lost for a few pages, and then I saw it, and then they brought in a couple of characters I recognized. I was like, okay.
Right. No.
Now I see what's going on.
No, they pretty much throw everything they have at the Hulk by the end of this, and we're coming up on the end of it. Like right now, as of the timeline, he's essentially gotten his hands on every member of the of the whole crew. One thing we didn't touch on when we mentioned Rick Jones earlier was that Rick Jones was actually sent in as a kind of distraction, and the Hulk let his guard down momentarily, and that put Doctor Strange at a point where he could get into the Hulk's head, and he made the mistake of doing
Yes.
that. So some reason in that metaphysical realm of inside the Hulk's head, the Hulk was able to depower into Banner momentarily and get Strange's guard down and grab his hands and then turn back into the Hulk and shatter them. Now, the reason this is important is Doctor Strange needs his hands to cast his spells.
Yeah, it took me a second to realize that's what had happened.
Well, after this happens, and
But
yeah, no, but after that happens, you really get a scene where Tony's just half-ass hiding himself, and Wong brings him a potion, and they release a blast from the past is pretty much what I call it. They release a fourth dimensional being known as Zom, and instead of hands, he just has these little spike mace things on the ends of his wrist, and looks basically like a demon Ghost Rider Doctor Strange. And then you get probably the next best panel of this entire series, because Doctor Strange ain't going down without a fight.
you know, I really want to hear Benedict Cumberbatch say "strange smash" in the next Avengers movie.
Oh man. But just I guess for a little backstory, Zom is a very, very old character. He was around in some of the original Doctor Strange stories.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Um,
because Doctor Strange is another one I haven't read a ton of. He's always just kind of been in other books that I've read, and I always found him entertaining.
yeah. Well, Doctor Strange, I believe it was Journey into Mystery or Tales of the Unknown, but Zom was just a mystical creature from a different dimension, basically a lot like Sidorak. But he he was defeated at one point by Dormammu, and at one point the Living Tribunal was forced to intervene and banish Zom from Earth before he destroyed humanity. Um, so I mean that's just kind of a basis of the power level of this entity. He shows up, and the Living
Okay.
Tribunal, the guy who's literally second
Yeah.
to God in the Marvel
Yeah.
universe. Like you've got the one above all, which is Jack Kirby, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. You've got the Living Tribunal, and then everything else. And the Living Tribunal literally had to be like, you know what? Nah, we're just gonna cancel this guy.
Like I'm sick of you. Get out of here, sort of thing.
Basically. But that's just how powerful this creature is. So Strange basically drinks an elixir that imbues him with the power and the spirit of Zom. Seems like a smart play, but that's the kind of desperate measures you're stuck with when you're facing Worldbreaker Hulk at this point, because literally nothing's been able to stop him.
Yeah.
I mean, the only chance these guys have is agoraphobic, schizophrenic powerhouse that doesn't want to go outside of its home. Okay. Now, Strange Strange is basically eventually forced into a retreat and then been defeated because he has to kind of like stifle the energies that he has, because Zom is basically trying to kill people to try and kill the Hulk, and Strange can't deal with that. So the Hulk saves the people, and then Strange, like, I don't know, disenchants himself or something, and then the Hulk beats the snot out of him, and then we learn that everyone that he's captured so far has been chained up and fitted with the control disc, just like the gladiators, and that the Hulk has been building an arena.
Yeah.
So it's essentially the transition from the thing that he hated the most on Sakaar into the thing that he hates the most in himself.
Yeah. It's that's kind of goes back to like the tragic nature of the Hulk.
Right. Well, and
I would say like he escaped the fight, but now he's the one who's going to be making people fight like he was forced to.
Right.
It's an interesting duality in that conflict.
So you have that happening, and then you realize that that's his overall plan. And he's going to pit these people against one another, and instead of killing them, he's going to make them kill each other. Now, you also, sorry about that, by the way. But you also have
That's all right.
yeah, we're both feeling the weather this week.
Yes, very much.
But at this point, you've got, oh yeah, he's built this gladiator arena. He's got these people that are pitting off against one another with the control disc on them. I mean, he's essentially become the Red King, and he goes through with it. Like, he makes these people fight. I mean, you get Iron Man hacking into the Death Head robots and trying to turn them against Stark, and then they use the control chips to make Stark turn the robots on its friends. Reed Richards eventually gets the upper hand and is ordered to kill Tony Stark.
Yeah, I didn't actually get all the way to this point. So,
Well,
so
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so those control chips, so like throwing Doctor Strange in there, I guess would he still have been able to use his incantations, or no, because the Hulk had crushed its hands either way?
Well, the Hulk had crushed his hands either way, so whatever magic he might be able to use would still be bad.
Okay.
And like I said, he made them fight and he let them use their abilities, but again, Tony didn't have his armor. It really just it was really bad. But it it again, like, this is one of the more depressing aspects of it, but it was very quick when you think about it. It was only a few pages. Like, he made them go through with it, but at the same time, you had all the flashbacks and all the panel shots of the Warbound where they were explaining that they were doing this because they were warbound to the Hulk, and they knew they were going to hell for it, essentially. Like, they knew their souls were damned for it. They were shamed and dishonored for it.
Yeah.
All
And
except for
one
Meek and the
of
Brood.
yeah, because one of them even said, I'm trying to remember uh, who it was, but one of them was talking to someone here on Earth, and even admitted to him, like, yeah, we're going to hell for doing this.
Yeah, I think that might have been Korg talking to the
Korg,
detective in
yeah.
Frontline.
Yes, thank you.
Just to kind of finish up the actual story, though. Obviously, at the pit of the gladiatorial arena, when the Hulk gives the thumbs down for Reed Richards to kill Tony Stark, you see in the arena, I mean, there are people literally foaming at the mouth for this execution to take place. It's almost a scene for scene shot of the original Planet Hulk storyline where the Hulk had to endure this. But after all 40 something issues, the Hulk gives the thumbs down, and the Sentry flies out of his house towards the Hulk. And you realize that the advice that Tony Stark had given him is that sometimes when the time comes and the only thing left to do, you have to play God. And that's essentially what Robbie Reynolds is doing anytime he flies out as the Sentry, because if he loses control, he becomes a creature known as the Void. And the Void
Yeah.
basically just fucks everything up. So we get this final this final arc, and I'm not going to go through the fight scene process because, like I said, it was probably a good 4 or 5 page fight scene between the Sentry and the Hulk, and I don't want to get a copyright strike, but I definitely suggest anybody who's interested in it, like, look it up, check it out, read the trade paperback. It's really it's a very good Hulk story. Um, and while like I said, I'm not a very big proponent of a lot of the tie-in stuff. I figure we can talk about some of those and what we thought about different aspects of the stories, what we liked, what we didn't like, and just kind
Yeah,
of meander that out for the last little bit of the show.
yeah. I'd say really some of those like other tie-in stuff was kind of I don't know, felt kind of like a little pointless,
Yeah. Well,
or maybe not pointless, maybe unnecessary would
yeah.
be.
That's essentially what I want to get into, but really to just kind of to sum it up in the end, um,
Yeah.
you get the Sentry beating the Hulk down. Okay, the Sentry just literally just puts the Hulk into his the worst shape he's been in from anyone on Earth, and then the Hulk depowers because they just fight each other to a standstill. Okay, and when the Hulk depowers, Rick Jones approaches him to just comfort him and whatnot, and you have a shot. I'm kind of kicking myself for not screenshotting this in particular, but there's a lot more to go over. Like I said, I didn't want to be going on for this for 2.5 3 hours. But
Right.
Meek is pissed off and he goes to attack Banner to bring the Hulk back because he understands that's how it works. Hulk
Hmm.
won't let Banner die. So Banner goes at Bruce and Rick Jones pushes him out of the way and gets stabbed. And that makes the Hulk transform again. And he literally just goes ape shit and starts attacking everybody. He attacks Meek. He attacks anybody that gets close to him. He stomps his feet twice, and I'm assuming that it's felt, if not the entire eastern seaboard, then literally across the entire continent. Because
Oh yeah.
he's so mad and so angry and has so much unfocused rage that he's at the point where he's going to break the world. Now, this
And
whole
it's pretty brutal too. The beatdown he puts on Korg and Meek and Brood,
yeah,
or the Brood.
right. He the unnamed Brood. Um, but he says go ahead and do it now because this whole time Shield and Tony Stark have been aligning satellites to shoot at the Sentry and the Hulk to stop them from destroying the planet with their power. So
Yeah.
you get this scene where he just stands still and says do it before I break the world, and they hit him and he transforms back into Bruce Banner. And he's just broken and defeated. You see him in the next shot, just in a crater, and everyone standing around him. And someone, Samson's holding the Sentry. The Fantastic Four. You see Black Panther, Spider-Man. I mean, the
Yeah.
Warbound. So at this point, it's over. And then you get the narration boxes, a lot like you had in the beginning of Planet Hulk, where they told you the story of the Sakaar son, and the story's
Hmm.
changed, and it's now, and this is the story of the Hulk because that's just the way the mythology has changed at this point. And after that, it just kind of you get a pretty good wrap up sequence where you get the fact that Banner's been contained. He's 3 miles underground and he's sedated so that nothing will go awry. And that's pretty much the end of the arc there. You get a little bit of wrap up with some of the more minor characters, but
Yeah.
then you get this big slap in the dick reveal, and that's back on planet Sakaar, out of the pits, the son of the Hulk rises. Dun dun dun.
So that's who that is.
Yeah,
I was curious.
yeah, that's Scar, the son of the Hulk.
Oh, okay.
There's a whole arc about that goes on. There were some comics called After Smash that I didn't read. Like I said, this was a great story, but I think some of the supplemental material just kind of burned me out on just trying to cover every little nook and cranny of it. The core story
Yeah.
itself could have been told in 2 or 3 of the series, but there was just so much.
Yeah, when you told me there was 80 comics in this whole story, I was like, holy.
Yeah, and you didn't even read half of them.
That's true.
But
But yeah, I definitely got bogged down in some of that auxiliary stuff too.
right, and that's why I wanted this to be a little more loose and relaxed of a conversation than a detailed play-by-play rundown. I mean, you can find that on YouTube. Comics Explained, the Rob Core, that guy does
Yeah.
a phenomenal job.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it and again, I don't want to be the kind of channel that just essentially does the same thing he does, but I do want to talk about some of the same topics. And in comics, you have to cross reference. There's really never going to be anything about that. But I definitely didn't want to just do a live streaming version of what he does on the fly because I'll never do it as well. I want to be able to discuss things and for people to be able to ask questions and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, that's really, and that's why I say if you get bogged down in auxiliary material or if you just don't like something, I mean, we can discuss that. I don't care.
Yeah. It's not that I didn't like it. Some of the part with the two characters trying to make the newspaper, that was kind of dumb. I didn't understand the point of that story arc.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean, the Heroes for Hire thing and the Gamma Core, like they were just like some of it was kind of neat, but to me it didn't serve like a big enough purpose to the like overall story that I don't see why they put it in there.
well, I think for me, I'm right there with you. Like the She-Hulk comics at the beginning, it was good for a backstory, and especially if you hadn't read Civil War, it was kind of important. But once I got into reading it, I was like, I already know what happened in Civil War, so I know why they're going to be angry at each other when I see them in 6 issues.
True.
And you also had stories like the one I've got pulled up right now, the Punisher comic that was in there, the War Journal. Now, let's just take a moment and appreciate the beauty of this comic. This comic had no business in the story. It served no purpose. You didn't have to read it. But just this one page alone shows why you should read it. Because they're talking about inspiration, and the guy's like, that's what I like about you, Frank. You can always appreciate my work. And he's like, hey, what's this do? And the guy's like, it's a gun, Frank. It's a gun that shoots swords. And I'm like, you know what? That is something that I need. A rocket launcher that shoots chainsaws. just simple
Oh
things for
yes,
simple men.
yeah.
But
You know, just in case the Sharknado hits, you need the rocket chainsaw rocket launcher.
right. Another thing, as good as the X-Men tie-ins were, if you take them out of the story completely, the story still works
Right.
because it ties its own loose ends up because he doesn't even take Xavier at the end.
Yeah.
So
So, but those were definitely a lot more interesting
right,
than some of the other side stories.
right. Even more so, Ghost Rider. You didn't need that story. I mean, that story had literally nothing to do with it except to watch the Hulk throw somebody else into the ground.
Right.
But that's what we got, and
I,
that's what
I
we
will
paid for.
say, yeah. I mean, I will say, knowing, how the spirit of vengeance works, the fact that it deemed Hulk innocent in what he was doing did kind of add a little extra kind of drama to the story.
I mean, it made the hair on
I will give it that.
made the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of a just a revelation that I wasn't ready for.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the whole story, you're kind of going back and forth. Like, you have the Hulk side of what happened, and then you have the Illuminati side of what happened. You're kind of going back and forth, and you're like, for a little bit, you're kind of being pulled, like, who is in the right in this instance. Um, and then that kind of like solidifies like that the Hulk's right in his vengeance. He doesn't just, I would say he doesn't necessarily go about it in the correct way, but
Well, it's like I say, it's vengeance. It's not justice. He's
yeah,
not looking for
right,
justice. He
yeah,
wants to avenge what's happened to him, and the only way to avenge what's happened to you is to literally do it to the people that did it to you.
yeah,
So I think it's like I said, it doesn't send a good message in that sense, but again, it paints a duality of an entirely different situation than the Civil War did, I think. Because the Civil War was about, identity and privacy, whereas you've got kidnapping, you've got, exile, I mean,
yeah,
attempted murder against the Hulk, all in the name of the greater good, and that's a moral quandary. Like, who are you to decide that?
yeah. And I think that's something that I kind of miss about comic books. At least I don't notice it as much these days in the mainstream Marvel comics. Is those moral quandaries like that?
Right. Well,
Like, if I would like to say if I was like in Earth 616 and faced with that decision, like what would you do? I mean, if you're having to live every single day, like there's a giant green rage monster that could destroy your entire life in the matter of seconds. Would you want to let him stay on Earth? It's a pretty interesting. I find it a very interesting philosophical question.
right, but at that point, like you're asking, what do you do about that? And my question always comes back to is who decides that? I mean, do you put it to a vote? Do you take a
Right.
popular national
Right.
vote and say, hey, do you want to exile the Hulk? Yes or no? I mean, how is that right? I mean, he's an American citizen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I love the fact that it raises these kinds of questions about it, and it makes you really figure out where you stand. Like, that's actually kind of a fun idea. Where do you stand on it? What would you do if you were in that position? How would you vote?
I would say I would probably say no, just because I do value individual freedom, probably above almost anything else. Uh, so if there was some sort of like big like global trial, if you were, and the Hulk was found guilty for something, and that was the solution because a prison's not going to hold him, that I might be okay with. But just like, nope, you're just gone because you could potentially be dangerous. I don't think I could agree with that.
Right. Um, One thing that I wanted to touch on as well. If you if you have to ask yourself that question, then you have to ask yourself the question of, how do I feel about the negative? And the in the Civil War, are you familiar with that storyline, or did you miss that one there?
No, I didn't read all of it. But I've read a decent enough chunk of it.
Okay. One of the things that Tony Stark and Mr. Fantastic did is they built a prison in the negative zone.
Yeah.
So everybody that wouldn't register was basically sent to that prison. Now,
Right.
to me, that just seems pretty, Guantanamo Bay-ish. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think that was the beginning of a heavily current socio-political messaging in comics. And I liked some of the writing. Like Civil War was a great story arc. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was poorly written in some areas. I think that they could have done a much better job with putting.
Like,
No, go ahead.
oh, I thought the catalyst was a little could have been written better.
The what?
With the catalyst for what caused the registration. Who's the guy?
Nitro.
Where
Nitro
he
blowing up.
Yes, thank you. Nitro blowing up.
Hmm.
Uh, I thought they could have done something a little bit better with that, but
I think it was supposed to mesh with modern audiences and make them kind of feel that this could happen in the real world, and that you would have superheroes running around being filmed by television cameras live on national TV, and this is what outraged the normal culture. Because I mean, think about it. Usually, Shield or Damage Control can step in and feed you a line of crock about how this was unavoidable, act of God, supervillain did it, and superheroes just showed up to fix it. But
right,
but when it's on live TV, you basically see these untrained superheroes run in and face off against villains that are obviously more experienced and more deadly than they're prepared for, and one of them takes out a city block because of it. Like the Avengers are supposed to have like safety plans in place for that. Fantastic Four would have put a bubble around the house or something.
yeah,
You know,
that's
it could have gone so much better, but it was caught going tits up on national TV, and I think that's why it works. I don't disagree that it could have been better. I think that it works for what it was at the time, because it was still like 2006, 2007.
really, it's been that long.
Yeah, dude, we're old.
Jeez.
But just getting back to the tie-in side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, before actually I get back to that, one thing that came out of this that was not well received. The buddy cop Incredible Herc that started after they put the Hulk 3 miles underground for a while until the Red Hulk showed back up.
Mm-hmm.
They woke Banner up when the Red Hulk showed up because obviously they needed him again, and we learned nothing from World War Hulk. But the Incredible Herc was I don't think it was very well received. And it's a buddy cop with Hercules and Amadeus Cho that that kept the Incredible Hulk and volume numbering, but just changed
Oh, okay.
titles for a little while, and that was part of a trend that Marvel was experimenting with at the time, and I don't think it was ever very well received because a lot of people like me have what you call a pull list. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is.
It's basically just what, like, the books you have, like what books you're collecting and the
The
issue numbers and stuff.
well, the shop will hold them for you as they come out.
Oh, okay.
Like if I go to my
Yeah.
shop and I say, pull me Batman, Spider Man, and Green Lantern. They'll pull me every Batman book, every Spider Man book, and every Green Lantern book, unless I specify that I don't want them. If I tell them pull me the Amazing Spider Man and nothing else, they'll pull me Amazing Spider Man. So at the
Okay.
time, my dad and I had a pull list that was about 50, 60 books a month. Um, we would go in together on our specific titles, but at that volume, we got a little bit of discount, and we just kept our pull list together and would go up there and work out the difference later.
Mm-hmm.
And he collected all the Hulk books. And when this happened, you want to talk about pissed off? He's like, I paid for how many of it? Because we would go up there and pick up like 2 months at a time. It
Yeah.
wasn't a weekly trip for us. We made a trip every like month, 2 months, just because we always had other stuff going on. And by the time we could get together to make the trip up there, it was, not very often.
Right.
But oh man, it was it was devastating when this came out because it was so bad. You could tell they were trying to ship Amadeus Cho as a character really hard,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
I,
I think he kind of you wear yourself out on the smart guy routine when you have the seventh smartest kid in the Marvel universe. Like, okay, who really cares?
yeah, and that's literally his title.
Yeah,
Like, okay, yeah.
but no. What other thoughts did you have on any of the tie-ins? I mean, Frontline was my favorite.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. I did kind of like Korg and the detective stuff. That was, again, it didn't serve. I didn't think it served much of a purpose to the overall story, but it was entertaining at least.
Right. No, I really appreciated it for what it was. I've always liked anthology books where you get like more than one chunk of story in a book because usually those are more than 22 pages, and
Right.
usually you get actually some decent content because somebody's not stressed trying to put out 22 pages in a month. They're trying to put out 8 for this book. It's probably their passion project, but a lot of the older comics were written like this. They were anthology books where you had 8 to 10 pages of one story, and then 8 to 10 pages of another story with either the same or different characters.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's why I like buying just like the whole like collection books instead of all the individual issues.
right, like the trades. Well,
It's just yeah.
Now, how was the format of everything that I sent you? Was it all right? And did you manage through it?
Yeah, it was all good. There were a couple of the pages were turned, so I would just have to turn my iPad the other way so I could see it easily.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it worked. It worked great for reading through them.
You play around with your reader settings and set it to do that or not do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I
mean, it was just every now and then a page would come turn the other way, or
right.
or it was like a full spread
Okay.
shot. So then I would have to turn it to from portrait to landscape to be able to read it. But other than that, yeah, it worked great.
All right. One other thing I wanted to touch on with the frontline stuff. That stuff started around Civil War, Secret Invasion, World War Hulk. The the backstory is that Frontline was founded, I guess, by a mystery donor.
Oh, okay.
I guess it was to be petitioned to the Daily Bugle, but it it was two reporters. One, Ben Urich, who has always kind of been a revolving Spider-Man character,
Yeah.
and then reporter Sally Floyd. So let's just even tangent off again and take a look at the female and multicultural representation in this book as opposed to current comic books, and just realize that the amount of strong female characters that were involved.
Right.
The emphasis that was put on the diversity of the cast. I mean, hell, the main cast was majority alien. It wasn't even human, for God's sake. You can't get any more diverse than that. You had a giant cockroach on your team.
Hey, and they were illegal.
Right. They were illegal refugees. They even said in the books they were all refugees. For God's sake, refugees. But this was 2006, so I mean, and nobody got into a rise about it, and you want to know why? Because arguably 80% of it was fantastic writing. 80%,
Right.
80%.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like it doesn't really matter who, like, what the characters are, like their skin tone or race or species, as long as they're written good and they're interesting characters.
Right. And that's, I think, what a lot of people kind of forgot when it comes to this diversity thing, because one of the big problems is that, the quality of storytelling and artwork in comics has gone down while the price has gone up. You don't get signature artists anymore. No, let daddy work, sweetheart. But yes, middle baby church has joined me for a moment. But but no, where was I going? She's so adorable. I'm sorry.
Going with the quality's gone down and the price has gone up.
Right, the quality's gone down, the price has gone up, and the virtue signaling and the politics have gone up. But the caliber of writing is just so ham-handed, and like honestly, I think Mark Waid is a garbage person. I don't like Mark Waid, for the things that he's done to Richard Meyer publicly and the way that he's portrayed himself to his fan base. However, I like some of Mark Waid's writing. Some of Mark Waid's stories are some of my favorites.
Yeah. And it's, separating the art from the artist sort of thing.
And it's really more about the the politics and the amount of ham-handedness there is to it, as opposed to just politics themselves. Because again, you had cultural and sociological references in this stuff. You had political references.
Yeah.
You had ideologies being spread. You had all kind of crush the patriarchy references in muted terms, or how
yeah, they weren't as blatant as they are today.
They weren't on the nose, but they were literal panels in the Frontline comics. Almost every one where it was like lower class income black neighborhoods in Manhattan were overlooked by the evacuation teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty on the nose, but the way it was written, you kind of understood. I mean, it's a crisis, it's chaotic, it's not right, it's not fair, and these people should be angry about it. You felt bad for them instead of feeling like somebody was trying to make you feel guilty.
Right. Like those, was it the Great Lakes Avengers?
Yes.
Was that the one where the character where she's like her power is she turns fat,
or skinny.
basically? Yeah.
Yeah, she can change her
But
body
to
mass
go back to
index.
skinny, yeah, but to go back to skinny, she has to like throw up or something. Like,
Yeah, that's a little too on the nose. Now, I'm not gonna lie,
yeah,
I love the
I
West
mean,
Coast Avengers, but again, that's a little too on the nose. It's like the Mockingbird comic with "Ask About My Feminist Agenda" on the cover. I believe it was Mockingbird.
I don't think I read that one,
I don't think I did either.
but but whereas that's obnoxiously on the nose, whereas bringing up that whole the lower income areas didn't get evacuated properly, like that's something you can, it's believably on the nose, I guess, would be the difference between those two.
Well, at the time of the crisis, it fit as part of something that you could see happening in the arc of the story. Like they weren't trying to force it
Yeah,
in; it could naturally happen within the realm of that story arc.
right, because I think they even mentioned Katrina. Like, did we learn nothing from Katrina, like, while they were going through that area?
Right. And I mean, even at the beginning of
So it
Planet Hulk, they made a Bush WND reference. But that's one thing I can say. I think Frontline was kind of it should have been a notice. I think everybody should have maybe taken notice of the direction that some of these books were taking, and kind of braced themselves for the environment that was coming, and maybe done something more about it to stop it, I guess. But we are where we are, I guess. So there's really no complaining. It's just I think we could have taken note from the early 2000s and seen what was on the horizon.
Yeah, but did we really know it was going to change that drastically though?
I think the writing was on the wall. I think the fact that the gimmick events and stuff like that took off, and the line wide storytelling where you had to buy every comic book that they put out for 3 months to get the whole story.
Yeah,
The variant cover gimmick that they put up, the fact that sales were going down sequentially for years. Um, when you take
yeah.
into
I don't get that variant cover thing.
um, well, I mean it works on
Like,
two.
did anyone really care?
Yes, yes, you have no idea the amount of completionists that exist in this world.
Apparently.
There are so many people out there who will buy one of everything that has to do with something that they love. So yeah, variant covers
I mean, go ahead.
oh no, variant covers are a terrible gimmick. They have what they call incentives. So that means that you'll get a variant cover by a very famous cover artist. It's going to be something that people want. That will be like 1 in 100. That means you have to order 100 copies of this comic book to get one of those variant covers.
Gotcha.
It's
I
it's
mean,
it's a tax on the stores.
I can imagine. I mean, to be fair, I'm a big fan of Led Zeppelin, and I have all of their albums on vinyl. But I mean,
Well, it's a little bit different, I think, because it's almost like it's preying on that mentality. And
yeah,
when there are so many comic books coming out with variant covers, and you know these people are out there that want to support the industry and like collecting these, and you make them to the point where retailers have to charge for that 1 in 100 variant. They have to charge $100 to $200 for it just to make up the cost of all the floppy copies they had to order to get it for you.
jeez.
It wasn't a good move. It didn't look good. It didn't feel good. Nobody liked the way it worked out. And I mean, even I did it to a certain degree. Like I was, I'm really big into supporting the comic industry, and it was even much more so not even 3 to 5 years ago, back in 2015. I was buying every comic book that I could get my hands on that had to do with the 2015 Secret Wars. Variant covers, all the tie ins, all the issues, 2 copies of each main issue so I could have one to read and have one to never have touched. I, I mean, I went all out, but even for people like me, you start to see variant
Yeah.
covers at like $70, $80, and you're like, I can't afford this. And it's disparaging
Yeah, that's
because
outrageous.
the cover price is no different than the cover price on the regular comic. So it's not meant to retail for that much. But
Yeah.
I mean, you had to order 100 copies to get it, and there's no way you're selling 100 copies of this book, no matter how good it is.
Especially these days.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's another thing, and I'll have to cut it off here in a minute because I'm going to start ranting, and we're already over 9:30 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
But no, one last point on that. Like back in the day when you had Superman comics and Superman and Jimmy Olsen, like in the 30s and 40s and 50s, the golden age of comics is what they call it. They were shipping a
Yeah.
million issues across the board of some of these books and selling them.
Wow.
And that doesn't count the amount of comic books that somebody would buy and then give to their friend for a comic book that their friend had bought.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the industry standard is a Batman comic, and it usually sells around 100,000 copies nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I mean, you break that in half, it's like what 2,000 for every state.
Yeah. and that's why there's no comic book shop near my house anymore.
Right. I mean, there's 8 million people in New York City.
Yeah.
So I mean, you don't have 100,000 readers of the most popular comic book. That's why the industry's dying. People have seen this for years and years, and nobody took the precautions that they took. So that's why all these indie creators are looking to these self-funding platforms, and there are people out there willing to pay $25 for a comic book to support this cause and action because it proves the fact that you can do it.
Yeah.
And as it becomes more fruitful and more popular, there'll be different platforms and they'll be able to produce them cheaper. And I honestly think that the end is that you put the digital copy out for free once the program is fulfilled, or you put it out there for like a $1 donation or something like that just to get the project funded. But I think that's the future. And then people that want to collect the physical copies will pay the $5 or $10 to back the physical copy.
No, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's almost a good thing for these indie comic writers that the industry's kind of going this way because it's easier for them to get their books seen
To a certain
on
degree,
a larger scale.
I mean, I do have to take a minute and face the reality of it. That for every book that gets back, there's at least a couple that don't. And I'm not about to take
Yeah.
any swings at anybody who never got their book back for their politics or their message or whatever, because it's not about politics or your message. It's about putting a book out to a group that wants it. Now, you can say that you didn't reach a large enough audience that wants your book, or that enough people don't like you to back your project, but at the same time, I think that we need to continue to push for better evolving platforms for this kind of movement if they're going to try and pursue it. But there's a way to do it without it relying on Indiegogo. There's a way to do it without having to raise
True.
a lot of money. You know, there need to be publishers that are
Yeah.
latching on to this, that are saying, okay, well, if we're not going to have to be adherent to Diamond, then we can be the arm of the small indie publish industry, and they can raise the quality of comics while lowering the price of them for a retailer and put indie comics in retail shops. I think that would be something that would be a great next step, because I think Diamond had more of a an impact on killing the industry, because it made these companies get comfortable in whatever they did. Because for Marvel and DC, a lot of people don't realize this. If you look at their business model, they ship comics via Diamond and they get the price reports back from that. They don't have the numbers.
Mm.
Supposedly, they don't have the numbers from the LGS, the local comic store. Um,
Yeah.
so as long as they ship enough copies, they can report that the book sold fantastically, even if it never moves off the shelf at the store.
Gotcha. See, that's what I didn't know about that. I figured Marvel and DC at this point would have their own publishing, printing, and distribution at this point.
Diamond came in and became the unofficial monopoly of it, and then essentially the official monopoly. They're the gatekeepers into the comic industry. There,
Hmm.
there are places like Alterna. Peter Semelli runs Alterna, and he seemingly boxes, bags, and boards all of his own stuff and ships it out in the mail in as safe a packaging as is humanly possible. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, because the only stuff I know about like that industry side of stuff is just listening to Zach Diversity in Comics, just what he talks about when he does his reviews on books and stuff.
right. Well, I try and keep my ear to the pulse of the industry because, like I said, I think it's on life support right now, and I don't think it can sustain itself even on Disney money, because it's more profitable for Disney to cut the cord on the publishing side and just make the movies and license out the characters for different authors and whatnot. Like this could be a new era for comic books as a whole. There's a lot of ways that they can take this, and like I said, I don't want to ramble on too long, but I think one of them could be is if like Marvel Comics publishing arm dissolves, Disney wouldn't have to necessarily lose all of the talent that they have, but they could license out the character for X books of story to this author and this writer and still publish it, but they wouldn't have to pay an entire staff of editors and stuff like that.
Yeah, like they have those novelizations.
Right. So, let's wrap it up over the next 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Next week, I'll have to get everybody the professional reader copies of Lock and Key. We're gonna look at the first 2 or 3 volumes of Lock and Key. It's gonna be about 18 issues, so it's gonna be a lot easier to digest.
Yes, I'll make notes this time.
I believe that's going to be the Saturday show, so I'll confirm that. But what do you want to do for Friday?
Okay. Ooh.
I figured I'd let you pick something since I picked the World War Hulk out of chat. I figured I'd let you see if there's anything in particular you wanted to pull up.
Not off the top of my head, but let me go through kind of some of my stories, and I'll find something that's not too crazy that we can read through decently.
Quickly. Any trade or anything like that. Any 6 to 8 issue arc.
Yeah.
Anything you want to pull out.
Give me a. Okay, yeah, give me like a day to figure it out, and I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Maybe even later tonight.
We'll announce that over Twitter once we figure it out. But either Friday or Saturday, we will also have Jesse the Dead Man from the Dead Man's Home and his co-host Becky on to discuss Lock and Key. We're going to try and get through the first 3 volumes, and I don't think that'll be too hard in a 2-hour time frame. So I want to thank everybody
Yeah.
that came out and jumped in chat. Thank you for suffering through that arc. All in all, you want to give it a rating before we jump off? You want to come up with a rating system for the stuff we read?
Oh, let's see. Well, I want to come up with some,
What about what about
something fun.
What about Hail Marys? How many Hail Marys would you give this book?
I'd say, considering I am going to actually finish reading through all of it. From what I've read, was this a 1 out of 5?
Yeah, let's go through. Let's go 0 to 5. You can give stuff a 0 here. No Hail Marys.
Okay, 0 to 5. I'd say probably
hail
yeah.
failures.
Go ahead.
Hail failures.
Hail failures.
Yes.
So if it's a hail failure, would it be opposite? So 0 would be the best, and
No, we'll still do 5 hail failures, because if you're hailing the failure, you done fucked
up. Okay.
I love you, failure. Don't disavow me. So yeah, 0 to 5.
I'd say probably a 3 7/8.
Okay, all right, going.
Just because I haven't read. Yeah, well, I haven't read it all yet, so I don't want to give a full judgment. But I enjoyed it. It was a very good story. I thought the overall arc with the Hulk was very well done. There were just some of those bits that lagged a little bit. So
I agree with you for the most part. I think overall, as a whole piece, not Planet Hulk, but World War Hulk as a whole piece, I'd say probably 3 out of 5. But if you just singled out the stuff that was actually pertinent to the Hulk's part of the story or had involvement with that actual main arc, I think it would be more of a 4 out of 5, definitely.
Okay.
So yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, look for us next week at the normal time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard, Friday and Saturday. And we will, like I said, be covering Lock and Key. That's by Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King, legendary horror author. So I look forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, man. Well, thank you again, and thank everybody that came out. You guys have a great night.
Thank you. See ya.